Hello and welcome. I'm Karen Marsdale and I'm President and CEO of the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Welcome to Member Spotlight. I'm so pleased today to have a young lady who is with us from Teen Challenge, Amber Didden, and she's Chief Operating Officer, which sounds like it's a really lot of work and a big job to fill at Teen Challenge. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm familiar with Teen Challenge, and I know many people are in our community, but talk a little bit about what the organization is.
Sure. So Teen Challenge actually began about 50 years ago for teenagers. It started in inner city New York, just helping young gang members get out of the drug lifestyle. And they kind of got into that realm and realized that these individuals needed long-term care. So they looked around and found a farmhouse in Berks County out in Rayersburg and purchased that farm and decided they were going to make what they called the training center. And so that became a source of long-term care for these young people who needed to just kind of reset their life and take some time out and just learn how to be adults. And so that grew and evolved and eventually became what we now are calling Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge. So our Teen Challenge Training Center that's located out in Rayersburg, we actually serve adults ages 18 and older who are dealing with life-controlling issues and drug and alcohol difficulties.
So tell me a little bit about, because there is a sort of a history about the founder of Teen Challenge.
Yeah.
And a book that he's had written, now 50 years ago we're going back.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that before we jump ahead?
Yeah, his name was David Wilkerson. He wrote a book called The Cross and the Switchblade, and if you want a really great Netflix night, you should rent The Cross and the Switchblade. It's actually a movie. It's a real popcorn popper. So he wrote this book and they filmed this movie. So David Wilkerson was a pastor from out in rural Pennsylvania, and he decided, and this is again back in the 50s, that instead of watching TV every night, he was going to pray and read his Bible. And one night he picked up a Life magazine. We actually have a copy of the original print in our offices. He picked up this copy of Life magazine and it had these gang members' mugshots on the front of it. And apparently there had been a murder as a result of this gang activity, and he just felt pressed upon himself to go into New York. So he hopped in his car and just on a whim drove to New York, wound up in the courthouse where this was happening, and it's not quite the Hollywood story. He ended up kind of getting stuck there. There was not much that he could do, but in the midst of the press confusion, some press members took a picture of him holding up his Bible, and that kind of became this iconic symbol. And so then he just kind of felt himself planted in New York, and the rest is kind of history.
So great story, and I wanted that to be a part of what you talked about today, Amber. But so we know that this is an ongoing, ever challenge in society today, and whether or not we are looking at an epidemic today of a lot of different types of drugs that people are dealing with. What do you think makes Teen Challenge different than perhaps other, what's your value proposition?
Sure. So our long-term program historically has been focused on long-term care. Right now we're a 14-month long program, and we really believe that the longer the time that an individual is in treatment, the better chance of success they have. And we've seen great success from that model. And then also certainly the faith-based aspect of our long-term program is where we find a lot of our success. We really believe that that's the key. Yeah.
And a little bit about the history in terms of like growth and the demographic, because I know that there are Teen Challenge facilities in other, we look at it perhaps because we see the trucks or the vans rather or something, or we're hearing something about Teen Challenge because we know it's somewhere in Berks County, but there are other locations, correct?
That's right. So Teen Challenge is actually a international organization, and then we have Teen Challenge USA, so we're also a national organization. And they're kind of our accreditation organization. And then we are Teen Challenge Training Center, and we're located in Rayersburg. And then under our umbrella, we have several centers. So we have three in Pennsylvania, including our Ryersburg Center. We have one in Western Pennsylvania and one in Philadelphia. We also have one in North Carolina and two in New York. And those centers primarily serve as what we call induction centers. So students entering our program, they come into two phases. And the first phase is a 4-month-long induction phase, and that's what happens at one of those induction centers. And then the second phase is the training phase, and that's what's happening at Ryersburg.
So all the training goes on in Ryersburg?
Correct.
In terms of okay.
So yeah, the second phase always occurs in Ryersburg.
So how many patients, if you would call that, would call them, which I'm sure that's probably the proper term, clients or patients.
Sure, yep.
How many do you serve in the course of a year?
Gosh, in the course of a year, I mean, I can say that our capacity is about 175 at our Ryersburg location for the second phase. So we have them coming in and graduating. We have a graduation every month. And we graduate a class of about 10 to 15 each month. Sometimes we've got even bigger classes than that. So we are seeing a lot of people come through our program. And I'm sure that we'll talk about this as well, but we just opened up our short-term program, and that's going to include 80 short-term beds.
Well, let's talk about
Sure,
that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking down and seeing that absolutely you have this new short-term facility. And what does that look like then?
So a few months ago, I'll just give you a little bit of history on how we came about doing this, because we really are rooted in this traditional long-term program.
Right.
And teen challenges across the nation still have this long-term model. And so it's been a paradigm shift for us. But a few months ago, I started working in our admissions office. And one day our CEO asked me, of the people, how many people call in a given month? And I said, well, let's just say 100 people call us in a given month. He said, out of those people, how many people do we place in our long-term program? And I said, about 25%, about 25 people. And he said, well, what's happening to the other 80-some%? And so I told him basically what's happening is you get people who need detox, which is a huge need right now, not only in our county, but in our greater area. Or you get people that hear long-term and that just makes their skin crawl and they can't
beyond the next
wrap
day.
their mind around a long-term program. Or then there are people that we just can't serve because they have co-occurring disorders or things that we just historically have not been prepared for. So we said, let's change that. Let's expand the net and get as many people in as we possibly can. And so that's where this idea of the short-term program came from. There's another teen challenge in Minnesota that's working on a model that's similar to this, so we kind of used that as our inspiration and saw that it could be done, and so we're taking a lot of that and making it our own.
So what does that short term in terms of time, what does that mean?
About 30 days.
Okay.
And it's assessed individually based on needs, so some people may need a little bit longer short-term programming and some people might need a little bit less, so it's flexible depending on the individual. We make those decisions.
And so talk to me a little bit about a fee for service at Teen Challenge, because I mean I know that this is not inexpensive work to do. I mean, when we really come down to it, you're working oftentimes one-on-one with individuals, and you need to have professionals to take care of folks. So how does Teen Challenge meet that challenge?
Sure, yeah. So our number one priority is always to serve the individual and their family, and we didn't want to lose that when we opened up our short-term program, and we realized that you've got to fund that. So we asked that our short-term clients pay a one-time fee of $5,000 that covers everything they'll need for the 30-day stay. We also are taking county assistance as well for clients who have that already in place. And so it's a very affordable option, especially considering what else is out in the area. And we're already seeing people interested in the program.
That is great to hear. Real quickly, and we're going to be closing in a moment, but can you give us some statistics on I don't want to say the success rate, because I know that just sounds so cold, I guess. But what do you call it, and what is it of your patients?
Sure. Well, probably the best way to explain it is that I work with over 40% of our employees at Teen Challenge are actually graduates from the program, and that's including our CEO. So, I mean, he graduated from the program, went through our extended training program, and now is running our program. It's incredible. I have a family member who's a graduate of the program, and I've just seen complete success from that. And so I'm really proud of what the program is doing just around the people that I see around me. We also, a few years ago, had a third party come in and do a study for us, and I think the success rate was around 75%, and that's after 5 or 6 years after graduation. They kind of were in society and functioning members of society. Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear, and I really applaud your work. You give people a lot of hope and a lot of help to overcome some very, very difficult times in their lives. So, and the families around them. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
Same
to meet you and to have you here with us today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much.
Thanks.